Tuesday remains undefeated as the best day of the week. Welcome to the Wise Guys. I'm Dave McCann with Blaine Fowler. Another Tuesday is here, which means another week is here, which means we're that much closer to the Big 12 getting here.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, every week we're a week, and officially it's July, right? But we've kind of felt like throughout these last several months, as each team finishes up their last season, whether it be independence for football or in the WCC for basketball, baseball's still in conference play. But as each of these teams finish, we kind of feel like, well, now they're in the Big 12.
Yeah.
But officially, doesn't it feel like the football team ever since the bowl game's been in the Big 12?
It does, and they talk like it, they act like it. We've been monitoring the guys coming in and the acquisitions like a Keaton Slovis, and all of it points to the big time. And then then the schedule comes out, makes it feel real.
And I can tell you that the coaching staff, their gear has Big 12 on it.
Yeah. It has right?
I saw some of the coaching staff the other day. I'm like, oh, Big 12 gear. Okay.
Nice.
So it feels like it's already happened, but officially it happens in July. And I think we really feel like it happens when that opener for football at LaVell Edwards Stadium happens and Big 12 is on the field. Then it's all about it, right?
We're fascinated with countdowns. All the holidays are big, I think, because of the countdown. In Vegas, covering the big fights, the fight was fine. The buildup was where the excitement was.
Right.
That's where the people came to town, and the excitement. And then Mike Tyson had come out. The fight would be over in 2 minutes. And then everyone's back to their lives. But this countdown toward the Big 12 has really, I think, kept this along. We were just talking with DJ a moment ago, our producer, of man, we're almost in the middle of May, if you can believe it.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Of course, it's felt like it's been wintertime until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Then it felt like summer, and now it actually feels like spring this week.
Yeah,
70 today in Utah. So, well, we're glad to have you with us. Every week we get closer. Make sure to follow us on YouTube. We'll put the link in the chat. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. Click on the bell, and you'll get notifications whenever we post anything or go live.
Yeah.
So you'll know what's going on. The more subscribers we get, the longer we get to do this show. Are we a year yet?
Almost. This month. Later this month.
So we're a year later this month. We're also live on Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com. So wherever you go, if there's an opportunity to subscribe, because all of it's free, just make sure you subscribe. Follow us on ysguys.com.
That's home base. That's kind of home base.
And if you subscribe, you get a weekly email with highlights from the show. So if you didn't get a chance to see the show, or if there's a couple of things you wanted to go back and re-listen to, it's laid out in highlights. You can watch interviews with folks like Danny Ainge and Jimmer Fredette and Marie Osmond and Ty Detmer and Kyle Van Noy. And I can just go on. Mark Pope, Dennis Pitta, Max Hall, Elaine Bradley, Austin Collie. It just
an awesome
goes on
list.
and on and on. This last year have been phenomenal guests and a lot of really interesting conversations. So, hey, subscribe and you can go back and go, oh yeah, I forgot that interview with Danny Ainge. I want to go listen to that again.
Or if I don't have 55 minutes with Danny Ainge, I can hear, what did he say about Larry Bird?
Yeah, what did he say about Larry?
Or that layup to beat Notre Dame.
Exactly.
It's a who's who among BYU alumni. And
how did Austin Collie describe fourth and forever? Right?
Yeah.
What did John Beck think about? Or actually, just last week, what did John Harleen think about Beck to Harleen? And what does he think about the phrase "Harlene's still open"? Any of that?
Yeah, and Kyle Van Noy when he single-handedly beat San Diego State. All of that is right there at wiseguys.com.
So make sure you follow on wiseguys.com. So.
Well, with every passing moment, as mentioned, we're getting closer to the Big 12. Something interesting happened over the weekend that caught our attention that we're going to talk about. Yeah. It actually might be bigger than it even seems.
Right.
Because of the direction that we're going.
Yep, absolutely. We'll talk about that. Hey, and joining the Big 12, it's not just big for the athletes. It's also big for the alumni, right? People are talking about it all over. We've got Michael Johnson, the Director of Alumni Relations.
Or Joe Hansen, his twin brother.
Sorry, Joe Hansen. Hey, Joe Hansen Johnson. And I know Michael. And he just come in. Hey, Michael. So, Director of Alumni Relations. He's going to join us in just a couple minutes. He's in the green room right now.
Yeah.
Is that carpet green?
if you with the right imagination, it can be any
you
color.
guys can tell me anything because I'm colorblind.
Yeah,
so you can
it's
tell
green.
me that's
it's as green as
you can tell me that's the green room. So Michael's in the green room. We'll ask him his top 5 picks for most influential alumni.
How about that? There's a lot of them.
One of our alumni is being honored here later this month. I'll tell you about that.
And we're going to take ourselves out of the mix, so that frees up 2 spots.
Because we don't want to hog all of it.
So the top 5 most interesting alumni, in his opinion, as the guy in charge of all of them.
Right.
So that's coming up here in a couple minutes. The basketball team added 3 guys from the transfer portal. We're going to break them down and discuss how they make the Cougars better prepared for the Big 12.
Yep, some good ones. So, and a few headlines. Football. Let's start with football.
Let's always start with football.
Do we always start with football?
We have to.
Sometimes in basketball season we start with basketball, but portal shopping continues as BYU looks to add depth ahead of its first year as a P5 and member of the Big 12. Once BYU gets through those first 2 home games against Sam Houston and Southern Utah, we talked about Sam Houston going to have the logo on the field for that game. They'll face 10 straight P5 opponents for the first time in history. They've played 7, right? Isn't 7 the max that they've played?
But not back to back to back like this.
So what are they still looking for in the transfer portal? Because there's still work being done. Transfer portal closed for you to put your name into it, so you can't add to it now.
But if you're in it.
But if you're in the portal, you can be actively recruited.
So what do they want? What is it still added linebacker help? They bring in Darius Lassiter. They get Cody Epps back. As we broke on the show last week, which was kind of crazy. But they're still shopping for receivers too.
Yeah, I think they have – each position group has a certain number of scholarships that they kind of have in their pocket. And we know that they have a couple of wide receiver scholarships still that they can use. So they're still looking – what they're looking for is there another receiver out there that can be a game-breaking, speed down the field, defensive stretcher kind of guy? Somebody with that really big top-end speed. You think about it, both Gunner and Puka last season had the ability to just run by people and spread that defense out, which when you have those kinds of guys, especially if you have 2 of them, then all of a sudden the safeties have to kind of turn and run quicker, and that creates so much more space for the quarterback to operate in that intermediate, and that's where this offense thrives, it should be where the tight end's coming across the middle, where outside receivers are breaking inside back into the middle of the field, where those speed guys have stretched the defense out. And so when you lose those 2 to graduation, you got to have somebody to replace them. And they have like Keanu Hill's back, right? And Epps is back.
And they got size. They got Hill at 6'4", Roberts at 6'4", Lassiter at 6'3",
and they all
Epps
run really
5'11".
well, right? Really well. Yeah. Especially those big guys, for as big as they are, they run really well. But they're not that 10-3, 10-4,
right,
where the safety goes, okay, where's that blazingly fast guy? I need to make sure I remember where he is. Because if he goes vertical, my job's to get on top of him. I've got to be aware of him, and I got to get in my back pedal and get out of here and get on top of him. And so those guys are phenomenal. They're even better when there's somebody like that on the opposite side of the field to stretch the defense. And so I think BYU is still looking for that. Epps is very fast, very quick, but not that kind of, that we're talking about.
He's catching it 10 yards downfield.
He's making people miss.
Right.
He's got tremendous quickness, right? Yeah. They do have a couple of guys in like Parker Kingston. He's a world-class sprinter. Young. Hopefully he can help out with that. Dom Henry's a fast guy, another youngin that's out there. Kingston's probably the closest because he's a sub-10, 500-meter guy. Like, he's a world-class sprinter. And so he could do that. He's not very big, though. He's like 5'9"-ish, 5'10", maybe. I think probably closer to 5'9". Be really nice to go find one 6 feet or taller that could run with that kind of speed. Now, I don't know if they're out there. And they're not just going to give away a scholarship because they have one. It would have to be the right fit.
And we should note that grad transfers, they can get in the portal whenever they want. And so it's always open to a grad student. So maybe there's a senior with 1 year of eligibility to play that's like, hey, I'm fast enough, I'm big enough, and maybe Keaton Slovis would throw to me.
Yeah, and I love that offense, and I love that it's in the Big 12. I mean, and there's other positions. You can never have too many good defensive linemen, right?
Yeah.
If there was another really, really high-level offensive lineman, they'd think about that.
But they're really good in those 2 spots, right?
I think where they could use some depth is at safety. And so if all of a sudden there was a safety or a big corner that they thought might be able to play safety, or they might be able to take one of their current big corners and move him to safety if this person could come in and play corner. And are we supposed to talk about potential guys or not on the show?
I don't know. I think we can say whatever we want.
Utah State has a corner that just got in the portal.
That's in the portal. We can talk about guys in the portal.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Utah State's, you know,
and BYU's offered him. That's been all over the news.
So AJ, Johnny Carter, who's the starter there, is in the portal right now.
So it's up to him.
And he's like 6 feet and 195 pounds. So he's a fairly decent size corner. Is he the kind of guy that could come in and either play corner and allow one of BYU's guys, Maury Bamba, or one of the big guys, to go play safety, or could he come in and move to safety? He's very skilled as a defensive back. So that kind of guy, yeah, you'd add him. If he decided to come here, they'd be thrilled, right? He'd be a really nice addition. So they're not in bad shape there, but I really feel like they could use some depth.
And they're just waiting for him to decide.
And Malik Moore's back after his injury, so that's nice. And you got Micah Harper back, but they've moved some guys that were playing safety up, like Chaz Ayu's playing linebacker.
Right.
You know, so I think safety's a position, defensive back's a position where they're always looking for talent.
We'll keep an eye on that as the shopping continues. It's like the holidays. 24/7.
Stacked at running back, stacked at quarterback, stacked at tight end, stacked on the offensive line, really deep on the D line. People don't understand how deep they are now on the D line with a couple of the transfers with Cravens and Bagnut coming in, but they're deep on the D line as well. They're actually pretty deep at linebacker too now. So with the addition of another Utah State, another AJ from Utah State, right?
You know, and the position that people that no one's really talking about with a great deal of confidence is the kicker spot.
Yeah, and there's a transfer from Boise State that's competing for that starting kicker job as well.
Is that Farron?
Yeah.
The Farron kid. And so Oldroyd's gone. He's done. And Justin Smith's there. But even through camp, it was kind of like, okay, is this going to work out?
Punter's on lockdown.
Yeah.
With Rico, an NFL guy. But kicker's still up in the air.
So we'll see what happens these coming days, and we'll keep you posted here on the Wise Guys. Did you see the football announcement during NBC's coverage of the Kentucky Derby on Saturday? It just kind of snuck in there, but it was pretty significant. During the broadcast, the network announced that they will kick off its Big Ten primetime broadcasts on Saturday, September 2nd, with West Virginia at Penn State at 7:30 Eastern Time. Now, it's like, well, why do we care about that? It was interesting to me because this is the first sign of this giant shift in television partners. As ESPN starts its deal with the Big Ten to start doing primetime games that don't include Notre Dame.
Right.
And then we know what's coming next. The SEC is moving all to ESPN. Mm-hmm. CBS is getting the Big Ten. I don't know where ACC is floating around there. Fox, Big 12, and ESPN with the Big 12. No one has any idea what the Pac-12's doing. But
Pac-12's on Apple TV.
But here was
something else. I don't know what they're doing.
But as guys who are in the business of it, I just thought, I go, oh my gosh, that's a Saturday night game on NBC.
And you know what? This is a sign maybe of, you talk about, I think shift is a good word for it. Because remember, NBC in recent years, in the last decade or so, has been in the business of getting out of college athletics. Remember, NBC used to be a huge part of college athletics. I worked for them for more than a decade. In college football, they had the rights to the Colonial Athletic Association, the CAA. They had the Ivy League. In basketball, they did the Atlantic 10, the Big East. They had the Mountain West football and basketball for years. And as those contracts came up, they're like, no, CBS Sports can have it. No, ESPN can have it. We're not bidding that much for that. We're out of that. Where they got to the point where the only two properties that NBC really had in college was the Atlantic 10 basketball package and Notre Dame football.
Yep.
And everything, they were focusing on NASCAR, National Football League, hockey, professional hockey, NHL. They were getting away.
Olympics has always been their top dog.
But they were completely getting away. And all of a sudden, with this shift in what's going on, back in college football, and not only back in college football, back is a title
as a major
network, major player with the Big Ten.
So now they have college football primetime on Saturday night and NFL football primetime on Sunday night.
Yes.
They're paying a fortune for it, but that was the first time that anyone's announced a start time. And I thought, Yeah. Okay. NBC's back in
and
the
I'm
game.
assuming they still have their package with Notre Dame and thing until so Notre Dame's a afternoon. They have the rights to all Notre Dame home games. So now they're going to have a Notre Dame home game on most Saturday, 7 Saturdays every fall, and then a nighttime prime time Big Ten game every week on NBC.
It's great for the
huge.
fan because ABC is going to be prime time.
Yep.
CBS can be prime time. ESPN will be prime time, and
Fox with
and Fox.
Hey, this Big 12 package for BYU with Fox and ESPN, those are 2 giant networks, right?
We're still waiting for the start time for the September 2nd opener against Sam Houston. I talked to David Almadova from BYU. He's the assistant athletic director over promotions and marketing. He said, nope, we don't have the time yet, but we're in meetings this week to come up with fun stuff to do.
That's great.
As the ball is rolling. Some key dates. On Thursday of this week, the NFL schedule is released. That's always a cool time. I love it because first thing I look for is, all right, what's going on Thanksgiving? Because that's when we're all together. What 3 games are we going to see? And then there are so many Cougars now in the NFL where every Sunday there's where's Taysom, where's Jamal, where's Tyler, where the Vikings going to play,
Right.
where are the Rams and Puka going to play, and on and on. And then you got Fred Warner, who's the best linebacker
And
in all of
keep
football.
we'll keep you up to date every week on who's playing who. The BYU alum that are out there, we'll keep you posted, especially when they play each other.
Yeah.
Hey, July 1st, there's a couple of things happening. First and foremost, we've alluded to this. July 1st is when BYU's officially in the Big 12. They start getting checks. I don't know when they start getting checks, but they're
I hope it's July 2nd.
yeah, first of July they're officially in. But it's also the July 1st is also Stadium of Fire, which you'll host again this year.
That's going to be a huge journey's coming, and Stadium of Fire to me is what kicks off football season, even though it's July.
It's
because
in the stadium.
The next big event in the stadium is the football game,
right?
And so it's this one. This has to happen for the next thing to happen. And so, it's 1,000 degrees and all that stuff.
Hey,
but
there's sometimes I'm going like, I'll watch fireworks from outside. If the band that's playing that I'm not.
Yeah, this is when you want to be.
Journey is one. Even my kids and maybe even my oldest grandkids know Journey songs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well, you'll be able to sing along with every single Solitary song.
It's going to be cool. It'll be a 45,000 person sing along, and that's going to be cool.
Be fun.
Not long after that, July 12th and 13th is the Big 12 Media Days
down in Arlington.
And we think that's when the start times will come out.
Right.
At least for the first month, and the others might be week to week. We're told. And when you own everything, you're Fox and ESPN, you don't really have to say 3 months in advance. That game will be at 7 p.m.
Right.
You can just wait and see where you want to put it.
Yeah, and you do it depending on who's playing well and who will give you the ratings. So.
An interesting thing with the NFL, just to back up for a second, this is the first year where, you remember, it used to be Fox would get the NFC games, CBS would get the AFC games. Now there are no boundaries.
Yeah,
Every
no
game's
lines.
a free agent.
Right.
So it's great for the networks because, if there's 2 really good NFC games on at the same time, usually you just get one. Well, now Fox can come over and CBS can come over and go, now we'll take that one. And
right.
I think that's going to be cool.
They just pick in
just
order.
in the pecking order of
whoever's week it is to pick.
It's not divisional anymore.
Yeah,
so that's going to be good for the viewer.
Good for the fans. Speaking of the NFL, July 18th is when NFL rookies report. Camp starts. So guys like Hall and Nakua, Blake Freeland, these guys all
their first rookie camps
have their rookie camp starting on July 18th.
Now, the ones who got invited to camp, and they've got their
like you're talking like
mini
a
camps
Peyton
going on.
Wilgar type of,
They get to go to these, or do they first have to survive the mini camps
so
to
what
get
happens
invited?
is there's a difference between signing a free agent contract, and you heard of some of those, that were happening.
D'Angelo Mandel with the Cowboys,
Harris LaChance, right?
Yeah, with the Colts,
and then the Peyton Wilgar situation is Peyton Wilgar got invited to a rookie mini camp with the Chiefs, right? And what you do is you go in and they bring you in and you go and you compete for that mini camp to try to convince them based on what they see to sign you to a free agent contract and to put you into fall camp, right? If it doesn't work out, if they go, hey, we liked you, but not, you can go to another mini camp. You can go to Seattle Seahawks one the next weekend. So that's somehow how guys make it onto the roster. They go to one of these, short mini camps. team looks at him and goes, yeah, this guy, now that we've had our coaches working with him, yeah, we like him. Let's sign him to a contract. And you can earn your way into a contract. That's different than D'Angelo and Harris and some of these guys that already signed free agent contracts with a little signing bonus.
So they get to go to training camp.
They're going to training camp.
And then we'll see how long they last.
Then they could get cut. They're under contract for that.
Okay.
These little invited mini camps, that doesn't tie you to that team. The hope is you go to one, you perform well enough. At the end of that mini camp, they go, we want to sign you to a contract.
I saw a clip today of Aaron Rodgers throwing passes at Jets mini camp today. And it's
and those are
that's
are their
awesome.
off-season.
Why do we love football so much?
Those are different too, because those are off-season workouts where they bring the players in for a short period, and those are the guys that are those are the veterans.
But the visual,
right?
The visual was
pretty
like,
cool.
Sweet, that's going to happen. 11 weeks from tonight, AFR returns. Kicks off its 10th season on BYU TV.
I can't even believe we've been doing that for 10 seasons.
10 seasons.
Yeah, that's nuts. So, and then August 3rd,
it's just around the corner.
And the Browns in the NFL Hall of Fame game. So that's the kickoff of the NFL preseason. The Jets, of course, was Zach Wilson. Now, here's the thing.
There's no reason to think he won't play.
Yeah, he'll probably play a bunch because now there's Aaron Rodgers. And last year we would say, well, he's probably going to play quite a bit because he's young and new, and they want to see. But he's not going to play that much. He could play this whole game, and then of course Sione Takitaki's with the Browns, and so it'll be Zach against Sione in that NFL Hall of Fame game. And then September 2nd is what it's all leading to, and that's Sam Houston at BYU. In the Big 12 inaugural season opener. Of course, Sam Houston's not a Big 12 team, but it's BYU's Big 12 inaugural season. So
those are key dates. And if you have birthdays and things like that, don't forget Mother's Day this Sunday. But there are other key dates to throw in there. But these are ones that are super important to us. Our guest this week is the Director of Alumni Relations at BYU. Athletic teams, as Blaine mentioned a moment ago, aren't the only ones getting ready for the Big 12. New markets mean new opportunities for BYU alumni all over the country. It's a pleasure to welcome Michael Johansson to the Wise Guys. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
It's good to have you with us. DJ's going to hit that mic, and we're going to be set to go.
We get this a little closer to you.
This is
there we go.
This is not your typical day at the office, but this is a typical day in our office.
It's a great office.
We're glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me here.
Don't tell anybody because only people that come here know where it is. We always call it the undisclosed location. This is for safety concerns.
For security.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't need a police situation.
I think people figured out it's in Provo.
Yeah, it has to be kind of, right?
Yeah.
Because we're right here at
But
the
that's
hub.
all anybody knows at this point.
And that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Michael, let's go back to September 14th, 2019. USC's taking on BYU at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. It's super hot. We're down there with our on-the-field booth dying. While the game's taking place on the field, the alumni are up in the stands handing out ice cream to the USC fans. Two of those fans were the parents of the Trojan quarterback, Keaton Slovis. So last November, when Slovis follows some advice from John Beck, former Cougar, but his quarterback coach, to consider BYU, and he's talking about it with his parents. What do they remember? They remember, as he said, his dad put it, the cleanest stadium ever, the nicest fans. They brought us ice cream. And then Keaton said he remembered how cool it was to play there, how nice everybody was, and the atmosphere. And so we're going to talk about ice cream for a few minutes.
I think that's great. I could talk about ice cream all day long.
So the alumni can take credit for half of this recruiting story by handing out ice cream to two guys, a mom and a dad, who have no intention of ever coming back to Provo.
Right. And isn't it beautiful that no one needs to take credit for it, but we just do the right thing, right? And if the right thing involves ice cream, I think you win every time.
When did you start passing out ice cream to the visiting fans?
It was a couple years before that. We just tested something out. We felt like there were other institutions across the country, colleges, universities, that were doing things in a different way to welcome their guests to campus. And we thought, well, that's pretty neat. Why aren't we doing this? Of all places in the world, why isn't BYU known for its hospitality, its welcoming spirit?
We happen to have a creamery.
We happen to have a creamery, and we are high on sugar. We're a bit more dry than other campuses, and so that's what we can go to. And the thought was, let's just do some ice cream. And we tested it out for a couple of games, and it's just taken off.
Dave and I, we've been fortunate. We've been in stadiums all over the country with BYU, with other games. Dave called the UNLV Tennessee game at Tennessee, and we've both been in stadiums everywhere. we've noted a few, like when we were at Notre Dame, we thought, man, these people are class all around.
Nebraska?
And the way we're treated. I think Nebraska may have been our favorite. And we've been in Wisconsin. We've been to a lot of places. I think Nebraska, if we quizzed each other and really were honest, we may say, you know what, Nebraska was the most hospitable fans in that phenomenal environment with all of that history. And we walked away from there going, man, we beat them, but what a great experience. And what a cool place Nebraska is. We tell everybody what a cool place and what a cool experience that was. How important is it for alumni relations for guests to leave BYU's campus and feel the way Dave and I felt when we left Nebraska's campus?
I think it has a couple of great outcomes that we maybe didn't even anticipate when we started doing this on a larger scale on a more consistent basis. And one of those is the way that the fans feel when they leave, absolutely. But one of the unintended consequences that I've seen is that how our own fans feel as they see that that's what we do.
So obviously they would like you to give them some free ice cream, but they're on the wrong side of the aisle.
They are on the wrong side.
So what happens with that?
Well, we say, this is for our guests, this is for our visitors, and then without fail, every single time I'll get somebody who comes from our fan base. They'll come walk through our staging area and say, you know what, that is so cool. It makes me so proud to be a BYU fan.
Yeah, it is cool because you don't have to do it. And that's most of the cool things in the world are things you didn't have to do that you did anyway. But now you're getting ready for the Big 12. So what's the forecast for ice cream in the Big 12?
We got to get some more ice cream. But the good news is we've got a creamery right here on campus that produces some great ones. I'm not going to debate Aggie ice cream versus BYU creamery ice cream. This is not the place for that. But we do some pretty good, we create some pretty good ice cream, and we like to share that and just make people feel welcome when they come to our place.
And here's a question I'm going to throw out, and it's for all, because I don't know the answer to this. I just thought of this, but being in the conference now, being in the Big 12, when you're independent, you kind of control how many visitor seats you're going to give up. There's no conference rules that dictate that. I imagine by contract, you say, hey, such and such come play us, and it's a big name program. They may say, well, we need to have so many seats, and you can do that by contract. But does the Big 12 have a rule that says we have to give the visiting fans a certain number of seats in LaVell Edwards Stadium?
There is a rule. I don't know what the number is, but I remember when Texas came, we did a home and home with them. Remember, I think they got 5,000 tickets. It was that big storm night.
Right. Yeah, that we had to kill like 2 hours on television with no action on the field.
And then when we went back the next year, we were there in Austin for that rematch, and it seemed like we had
at least 5,000 seats, right?
5,000 in a stadium with the seats 100,000 didn't seem like that many, but in 65,000, 5,000 isn't a great number. But I think it's something like that. But there is a guarantee.
There is. Yeah, that is correct.
And it seems like it will be more, obviously, than what we've had to do these last several years in independence. And remember when TCU came out and said they're not going to allow single ticket sales for their game against BYU because they don't want Cougar Nation to come take over, because they know we do, because we have before down there. But BYU did come out and say that we will have an allotment that starts with Cougar Club and whatever. And so a team can't just say, hey, none of your fans are coming in. But it's the extra seats that it's like why so many BYU fans somehow get into Rice-Eccles Stadium. Right. There was the allotment, and then like 5,000 other people got seats some other way, and TCU is saying, hey, we're trying to cut that down. We don't lose home field advantage. Yeah, so
but they're going to need a lot of ice cream.
Yeah, you're going to need a lot of ice cream this fall, right?
We are ramping up for that great partnership with the athletics department and also with the Dining Services Creamery.
There's a built-in dilemma, however, because Oklahoma comes on November 18th, and ice cream may be out of season.
Do you switch to hot chocolate for the Oklahoma game?
What do you do for that?
Audience interaction here. Let's poll the listeners.
What do you think
out
there?
What are some good ideas? We're searching for the greatest idea that we can have for the late game.
Hot chocolates would be a giant pain.
It would be rather uncomfortable for some people if we're throwing it like we do the ice cream.
Yeah, because you can just throw ice cream.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And then you distribute what? You get 5 minutes after the first quarter to distribute 1,000 cups of ice cream.
Yep.
Or so?
About that. Yep.
Yeah, how do you do that? Besides chucking it 20 yards.
We've got a great team of volunteers, and we are always welcoming other people who want to come participate. It's an open opportunity for our fans to come and participate, meeting at the Portal G at 5 minutes before the end of the first quarter. Any of your listeners, any big fans want to come and join us with
They can just leave their seats, come down, and distribute the ice cream?
Yep, takes about 5 minutes.
Well,
it actually takes less
that's
now
really
because we just have the break. We only have the break to do that. So the more people that we can put ice cream in their hands and a spoon and just welcome people. They need to be friendly, so that's the qualification.
Right. There's that. So if you're friendly, you're qualified for the work. Is what we're saying.
Yeah,
Right?
you can't hoard for yourself. This is a giveaway.
Right, yeah.
But what about the reaction that you've gotten is because you've been involved in distribution of this ice cream. When you're approaching a visiting fan and you're about to give them something, what's the first thing we do when someone approaches us? We back up, number one, because we don't want to have to get some sales pitch. And then you give them free ice cream.
You know, it's just the shock and awe. And that's my favorite part. Personally, that's my favorite part, is that we're doing something that was unexpected. And that's just so fun to do when you get to brighten someone's life and you get to bring a little bit of sunshine into their life. And that's the reason why we do it at the end of the first quarter, because usually at that point, there's not a lot of...
It's still a game?
It's still a game.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of super high level competition or I guess bad feelings that might have evolved during the game.
And what does everyone like? What's the favorite flavor of the visiting fan?
Well, we don't give them many options because it's free. So we'll have a...
You can't be choosy when it's
No,
free.
you just take it.
So Grand Canyon is always a favorite. We get because we love to promote that.
Grand Canyon.
And cookies and cream is a great one.
Yeah, nobody can. How can you turn down cookies and cream?
Yeah,
So we have,
you
the
can't.
creamery has some unique flavors that we don't go with
Yeah.
just because we want it to be.
If you
more
hand out the satake, whatever that is, then they might not eat
But
it
they
as
throw
much
it on
as
field.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
from the coach.
So, well, hey, Michael Johansson is Director of Alumni Relations at BYU. Our guest here on Wise Guys on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, ysguys.com. We've talked about this change that's taking place with the Big 12. Does this provide an opportunity going into the new conference to connect the alumni across the country better? Is this a big deal for the Alumni Association?
It's a really big deal for our alumni all around the world, especially for those who are in these communities where we'll be going to more regularly. And that's a big deal because for many, many years, as you know, we've been independent and going to having these great events, but they're kind of one-offs, right? And those are awesome for a lot of people. Now we get the opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into these communities where we'll be going back to as guests. And we anticipate, looking at the names here on the wall, that we'll be welcomed in a wonderful way.
Yeah, we don't have Oklahoma and Texas.
We
up
left
there
them off.
because they're leaving, but maybe we should put them up there just in the short
We're
term.
waiting to put up Arizona and Colorado.
Yeah.
We're holding off on that too.
Maybe San
See
Diego
what
State and
happens.
Gonzaga. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know.
One thing that's interesting too is the way you're structured, and I know this from Las Vegas because Las Vegas has a huge alumni chapter, and they have a golf tournament and some events where they raise money, and then they provide scholarships for Las Vegans attending BYU, which is a fascinating concept. But that's going on all over the country, and so even in these new markets, Kansas, West Virginia, Stillwater, Oklahoma, these areas, you already have boots on the ground, so to speak.
We do. And the magic of BYU is our chapters. Our alumni influence around the world is the chapter structure that we have. And it's been built over years and years by dedicated people who give of their time and their talent and often of their treasure as well. But it's where the magic happens. As you know, a lot of people will say, wow, you guys travel well when we go to different events. And
They say it all the time.
we have to tap them on the shoulder and say, oh, no, we're your neighbors.
We're actually there.
Yeah.
We didn't travel. We're there, right? Which is unique.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. You mentioned the way that the chapters are organized. We have a replenishment grant program for our students that the chapters raise money, they do events, and they'll collect funds. And those funds don't come to the university. They go to the students from that place who are coming to a BYU school. And that just makes it awesome. I mean, the word is localization, and there's power in localization.
So how many chapters in the country right now?
We have about 85 active chapters around the country. Those are regional chapters. We have an additional 30-ish that are affinity-based. And so, 120 or so chapters that we're running all the time.
This fall, BYU is going to play at Arkansas, at Kansas, at TCU, at Texas, at West Virginia, and at Oklahoma State. So you have 6 chances to make first impressions, so to speak. How will you do that? Where will you start? Is it a service project? Is it a what?
Well, we've formalized this program called Cougs Care, making it a little bit bigger of a deal, where we want to make a difference where we're going, and not just win a football game, but also leave a lasting impact, and especially since we're going to be going back to these places.
Yeah.
Service is the name of the game. If you enter campus, and most of your listeners know of the sign when they enter into the campus, it says "Enter to learn," which is great, and go forth to serve, and that's our job as an alumni group, as alumni of BYU. Our job is to go forth and serve, and we take that very seriously, and that's why we do these projects. That's why we've done a couple of them. You've talked about it on the show here several times with our local chapter leaders.
Yeah,
we've done over the last couple of years.
And we're going to keep doing that.
Yep.
Every time the Cougars come to
every
town.
time there's a game on the road, we're going to get with that alumni chapter president and talk about what the project is and how can people get involved. We feel like it's an important thing that BYU does on the road, and we want to make sure that people are aware of the opportunity to participate in that. So we'll continue to do that.
And this year is the first year. Well, last year was the first year that we did a project of any type of organization at every single game. And this year we're going to do the same thing.
Let's talk about some of the marks that BYU fans have left on these communities where the football teams come into play, and we anticipate it continuing. You go back to 2019, Cougars in Tennessee,
right?
Coat drive for Nashville. That impact lasted much longer than the outcome of the game. Tennessee fans want to forget the game, but what impact did it leave?
It was phenomenal. I mean, if you're familiar with that stadium and the number of people that you can fit into that place, it's phenomenal. It's remarkable. And as we left, I was there. We had about 6,000 people show up for the pregame event where there was a coat drive, and as you mentioned, and they continue to talk about it. And that's not the reason why we do it, but that's awesome that we talk about it because we hope that inspires people to do more.
But sometimes it gets news coverage.
Sometimes
they'll
it
do
gets news
stories
coverage.
like, what are these Cougars doing?
Yeah, and in 2020, we remember because that was the COVID year, and so the fans couldn't show up in the stadium and make a big deal, but up in Boise, the alumni staged a food drive in Boise, which got some news coverage. And
So how did that work?
Local chapters. It's the magic of the local chapters. They want to do something. They couldn't go to the game, so they still said, well, we're going to show up. We want to show that we're here. And they showed up with some food.
So they drove to the stadium that they couldn't get into, dropped out some food, and then went home and watched the game.
That is correct.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Let's go to 2021. Diapers for Georgia Southern. Tell us about that.
You know, if you've been to that little place over there, it's this wonderful community. There, Georgia Southern's a wonderful university, and they welcomed us well. There were some other things that happened that weren't as welcoming, but we had a couple thousand folks show up, and they brought. And the news clip, I love this news clip. The guy who talks, he's from the local food bank, and he said, in his wonderful drawl, and I don't know if you can run the clip or not, but
in his southern drawl, right?
Yeah. And he said, I'd never seen people show up to a tailgate with diapers. and that was one of the catchphrase that we just kept on hearing over and over again. And that was just a local connection from our chapter leadership, their alumni leadership there in that region. And they knew a need. They asked around, and they said, we'd like to make a difference here. And they said, well, this is what it would do. And we coordinated with the local church as well, and had some food, a big trailer drop there as well. And just those things that we can do when we get our people together and start asking questions of what, again, is the local need that we can address with the people who are there and the people who are coming around for this activity.
And the team's never going to play there again, ever. But the impact of BYU coming to town will live on for a long time.
For a long time. Yep.
Yeah, that same year, so 2021, BYU played in the Independence Bowl against UAB. We'll try to forget the game.
Yeah, they're
Rainy mess.
Rainy, miserable
But Algier
game.
did set the record.
Yeah, he did.
That game. That was about all.
But of course, the Independence Bowl's in Shreveport, Louisiana, and you guys had a project called Socks for Shreveport. Tell us about that.
You know, that was another just a great example of asking the local folks, the local fans, hey, what's going on? What are the hot points in your community? What are you trying to do? Because people, they leave BYU with the desire to serve because it's on the sign, it's built into our DNA. And so they're already serving. So we just said, okay, what's going on? And I remember we had like 5 days to put this thing together because of how late the announcement was of where the game was going to be and when it was going to be. And it was Monday evening before the game, and we were on a call with some local church leaders there. Bishop was there, and I said, hey, what could we do? And he said, well, I'm working with this organization, and we're doing a sock drive, and we have a goal to meet their annual goal for socks, because for the homeless shelter, foot health was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's your goal? And he said, well, it was going to be this. And I said, oh, we'll take care of that. And we put together pretty easily a campaign in 4 days and said, hey, bring a pair of socks to the tailgate activity right before the game. And we met their goal in 1 day.
That's awesome.
Wow, that is cool. And how was it received by the non-BYU fans?
You know, that game was pretty unique. We opened it up to UAB and the local community there.
Yeah.
And we had the best place for a tailgate location. We had a better location than they did. And so they ended up being in our space. It was covered, it was rainy and it was really not a great day, but we were covered. And so we had a lot of people coming in, and they brought their socks too.
That's great. Two teams working together. I like the literacy program that you guys have been involved in, and it sounds like this literacy program is going to carry over. Started at the BYU Liberty game in 2022, called Literacy and Liberty, and this is a program you're going to carry over to Kansas and West Virginia this season, right? What a cool program to help kids read, right?
That's correct, and it's a partnership. In Liberty, we tested that out with organizing with the local literacy group with United Way, but also with Liberty University, the other institution. So our School of Education is very active. They just launched their Educator Society chapter within the Alumni Association. It's very active across the country, and they are expanding that through this partnership, and not only with the local efforts of literacy, but also with the universities who are teaching this in their classrooms. And so that's been a unique wrinkle with this literacy effort, and we're going to play this out through a couple of experiences this year.
So what are you asking your reps and alumni in these areas where we're coming this fall as we sit in the middle of May? What did you say? Hey, start thinking. What are we going to do? What do you want to do? What's needed in the area? Morgantown, where the Cougars are coming in, and so whoever the rep is close to Morgantown, do you say, hey, let's get some ideas going?
Again, localization. What is going to make a difference for you? What are you already working on? I talk about slapping a 60 on it. There's a long story behind that, but incorporating into the things that are already happening. There's so many great things happening, and our local chapter leaders are amazing. They're incredible. They put so much effort into their service in their community, the service in the church, and building other families and building their own families. And so what we want them to be able to do is the things that they're already doing, but just more, bigger, better, and more, and show up. A
little more muscle. We were thinking when Kansas is the Big 12 opener, right, in Lawrence, and so I'm curious, do you kind of have an idea already of what the Alumni Association is going to roll out there?
We're working on all the details. I'm not prepared to announce all of the different pieces with each of the places, but
enough to leave a punch.
Yeah, there's something working. All of the areas, including Lawrence, Kansas, have got their ideas flowing. They're putting together their proposals, how many people they're going to need. We're always going to need more people.
Yeah,
more people showing up to help out and just to show that support, and then to see the support as well. That's the beautiful thing about these gatherings, is to be part of that family that we all are.
And the church is interlinked, and the church is what stays behind, right? The football team leaves, and this BYU goodwill blast for a weekend translates directly to the church, which is the sponsor of the school, and so the Big 12 and BYU's involvement there from the alumni perspective is so much bigger than 6 road football games, isn't it?
It sure is. And isn't it great that we have this organization of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that does stay and that does amazing things in their communities through the families and the leaders and the individuals who came and had a unique experience at Brigham Young University and are now building the kingdom of God in their communities. It's incredible. And to be a part of that, even just a small part in helping create a service opportunity for somebody to dig in deep and to extend that experience from BYU is phenomenal.
It's just such a great presence all across the country. Well, we're pleased to have Michael Johansson with us, the Director of Alumni Relations for BYU. And it is amazing to me that you guys are already, I guess everything, David Almodova's getting ready for what's got to go on in the stadium. Like everybody's getting ready for the Big 12, and you guys are no exception.
I know today Almodova's group's meeting with the fire dancers.
Yeah.
This is how far out the plan is.
They're figuring out what they're doing.
How do we get more fire in the stadium?
Yeah, you got to get more fire. So I'm curious, how many alumni, you mentioned 85 chapters, how many alumni in the United States right now? Do you have a number for that? Because we know there were 6,000 graduates this last week, right? So there's now 6,000 more alumni. How many of those did you get, and what's the total now?
Well, usually when I'm talking about this, I'll ask if anybody has any idea, but I won't ask that unless you guys want to guess.
I think 500,000. I'm thinking 500,000 is pretty close.
Well, if you can see the paper that's sitting in front of me.
It's too close to me. I can see it.
It is just over 500,000.
You do have it.
Well
you can
done.
see the cheat sheet. I could not see that.
I see it. That's why I didn't answer. It wouldn't have been fair.
But I will say that 509,258 is all alumni from all time. And so that includes those who have passed on.
Okay.
But we do believe in alumni relations on both sides of the veil.
Yes, there you go.
You have to. If only ice cream could be on both sides. I know you've come today because we asked you prepared to reveal your top 5.
Oh, that was a tough ask.
Most influential alumni in the world today.
And if you have some honorable mentions, but like, I don't know that we can hold you to 5, but if you have 5, this is great. But
yeah, well, luckily, again, I heard sitting in the green room or the blue room that you excused yourselves from that. So
We accused ourselves. It's not fair.
Yeah.
Blaine and I are proud BYU alums, as we're right there with the 500,000 plus others. But there are people making a giant difference in different parts of the world that hail from BYU, and some are obvious, and some maybe not so obvious. So we thought, hey, why don't you give us your personal top 5? You're in charge of them all.
Well, yeah, this is going to get me in trouble here, but
we'll call it a soft 5.
It's a soft 5. Yeah, that's probably fair. Ken Jennings is one of my favorites.
Okay.
There we go.
Our Jeopardy champion.
Why?
And he's hosting that sometime now, right?
He's now hosting this, and just a phenomenal individual. Has a great mind, good soul, has done some great things, and is just a good representative of the university. And
okay, I would not have thought Ken Jennings. I don't know why.
People forget. You know what? I think Ken's gonna have to come on the show. I have to get Ken on the show.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Ken Jennings.
And knowing this show, I came up with a couple of sports. So we'll put Steve Young in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Steve
you have
is
to.
just a class act. Has done some phenomenal things. Is again great representative of the university.
And it's not just because he's on ESPN or he won Super Bowls, but his foundation and the things that he's been involved with away from the game. And I would think that, and Blaine, you can agree with me or not, but I would think that Steve is probably the most out there
available, right?
Guy that's everywhere. Super Bowls and this and again ESPN and all that they're doing, but he's just found a way to be everywhere and to be kind of cool about the whole thing. Super nice guy, and you never hear anyone say, well, I ran into Steve Young and he was blah blah blah. And no, I ran into Steve Young, he was awesome. That's usually what you hear.
Steve's going to be honored later this month by the BYU Management Society as Distinguished Utah Person of the Year. And he lives. They have a house here, Steve and Barb, but they live most of the time in Palo Alto. But Steve's involved in so many businesses. He's funded multiple businesses here and startups and that. So they have a big banquet for him up at the.
That'd be great.
Up at the Little America later this month, and Brendan and I are going to go up and join him up there. But that's just the latest for Steve. So the BYU Management Society is honoring him, but that's we see him every week during football season on ESPN covering National Football League. He's a Hall of Famer. He's done so much good for BYU with his presence out there.
So Ken Jennings and Steve Young.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
I'm a big, and again, personal. You asked for personal.
Right.
Yeah.
Charlene Wells Hawks,
Okay.
Miss America.
So Charlene, when we were back as youngins, she was the Relief Society president in Brenda's ward in the dorms. So that's the first time I met.
Oh, yeah?
And then she just went by Charlie. So it was Charlie Wells. And then she had to be a little more formal. Then it was Charlene Wells when she was Miss BYU and Miss Utah and Miss America, and Charlene Hawks when she married Bob. But yeah, I remember as the Relief Society president and Helaman Halls. Wow.
So we have a Super Bowl champion, a super smart guy, and Miss America.
There you go.
There's three. All right, keep going.
And we can be as brief as you guys need to be on this. And I know that entering into politics is always a dangerous thing. But we have 26 alums who have served as senators.
Wow!
And
I didn't realize we had that many.
26.
pretty significant in the political arena for BYU.
Two right now, right? With Mike Lee and Mitt Romney from the state of Utah, BYU grads.
So we'll just put those two both out there. Again,
Because they are current U.S. senators.
At 26 senators. Wow.
so
Hey, we only have two in the state of Utah, and there's multiple universities here. It's not a coincidence that two are BYU grads.
And Mike Lee's dad was president of BYU, Rex Lee,
Yeah.
who was one of the great ones.
And was Rex the
No bigger
solicitor?
BYU football
Wasn't
fan.
Rex the Solicitor General of the United States too? I believe he was.
Before.
Yeah.
No bigger football fan. And President Holland loves BYU, but I think even Rex Lee took it to the next level. But those two,
Yes.
those two were awesome. Okay, so number one, or at least the finishing of the
He's still
five.
got more. He's got more.
I didn't know we were
Okay,
counting
keep
down.
going.
No, just in case you needed more.
Okay.
No, I like it. I
We
can
like
see
what
his
you're
list.
doing.
His last one's big time. We never think of this.
Yeah.
All right, keep going.
Should I mention that one now? I have to mention Stephanie Meyer from Twilight.
Sure. Yeah.
I have 4 daughters, and this is, can't not mention that. I'm not a voracious reader of the Twilight series.
I haven't seen them, but millions have.
Yes.
Millions have. You know what? I
I've
wouldn't have thought of that either.
read the books and seen the shows, right?
That's amazing. Okay. All right, keep going.
TV. Philo Farnsworth.
Philo T. Farnsworth. We wouldn't be.
That's the last one on his list, and I can see who's written down. I'm like, wow, we never even think about. You and I don't have a job without him.
Yeah. How would the world communicate without a BYU grad in Philo T. Farnsworth?
Yeah, that's amazing. He's impacted a lot of people's lives.
That's a pretty good list.
For sure. And there are a lot more.
Yeah.
There are a lot more.
The Philo T. Farnsworth, Charlene Wells Hawks, Steve Young, Ken Jennings, Stephanie
Myers.
I left the S off there, from Twilight. Man, that's a good group.
Yeah, it's a great group.
So you get a call and boss them all around? Say, hey, here's what I want you to do.
They usually don't like to hear from me. But
You're the director of their we're all alums.
Say, look, if you want tickets, here's what I need you to do. I need you to show up at this thing. And I know that you had to ponder to come up with this list. There's probably 100 more that you could have mentioned just off the top of your head, but it's a unique group, this BYU alumni.
it is. And it's so large. And that's the power of this family, the BYU. And we can't not mention our other institutions that are part of this family as well. Our campuses that produce graduates in Rexburg and La Ie and in Salt Lake City that are producing amazing graduates that are making a big difference around the world as well. And we get to be a part of that. But it's remarkable to be involved in this great family of 443 living alums.
443,000.
That's pretty good.
Wow, that's a lot. So, hey, when you think of alumni you serve, you think about your late father. Why?
Boy, that's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's
Wayne.
not an easy one.
So that's how we roll here on the
You didn't
Wise
tell me you were
Guys.
going to ask me that
No,
question.
I know. We didn't tell you anything we were going to ask you.
When I had the opportunity to be involved in alumni, this is the personal side of this. My daughter, she's a big BYU fan, and we got to go to a fan fest in La Ie. We're living in Hawaii, which is where we raised our family. And as we And as we walked up to the fan fest that I'd worked with, putting together with David Almodovar over there, and agreed with some persuasion to put BYU flags on the flag circle in front of the campus there in Laie. And as we walked up, I had been given an opportunity to consider a job here in the alumni group in Provo. And I was responsible for advancement in Hawaii, and I had a great spot. I mean, living in Hawaii, it was pretty good.
Not too bad, yeah.
And my daughter, but we felt guided, pretty significantly guided to be looking at this opportunity, and it was presented to us, not something we sought. And my daughter grabbed my arm, and she was going to have to be leaving Kahuku High School, where she was already an elected student body officer.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, "Dad, if we get to go to Provo, will we be a part of this?" And I said, "Well, yeah, honey, that's part of the deal. That's the deal." And she grabbed my arm and she said, "I'm in."
Oh, that's nice.
But that comes from what my dad was to me within the scope of BYU. He was one. He graduated in 1976, degree in accounting, and then went to work for a farm operation that was just starting up with a bunch of partners who opened up a bunch of land in Washington, and worked that job for 30 years, literally until the day he died, because he was driving to work when he crashed his car, He never got his name in the magazine. I like to think that the only time he got his name in the magazine was when he died.
In the Y magazine for the alumni.
And that always meant something to me. He was the first graduate in his family, to go to BYU has always been something deep to me because it helps me connect to my dad, who never got allocates. He was never on a field or a court to score a bunch of points. Raised 7 kids, taught them to be good people, to follow Jesus Christ, and that's a big deal. And that's the majority of our alumni family.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about these top 5 or top 7. They're making great things, and we need those people all the time. We need more of them. But the magic is these hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who go through Brigham Young University and have a revolutionary experience in their lives, and it makes them want to serve and to want to be better people and better disciples of our Savior.
Folks that we'll see in Fayetteville or Little Rock, wherever that game's going to be, and then Lawrence and throughout the roadmap of the Big 12. That's great. We should note that you were recruited to play football from Kellen Moore's dad. Kellen Moore is the best quarterback ever to come out of Boise State. His dad's your high school football coach. He wants you to play tight end, but he could not convince you. What happened?
Were you in Prosser? Were you growing up in Prosser?
I grew up in Prosser.
I didn't even realize that.
Prosser, Washington. I was just there last week. And yes, Tom Moore did ask me to play tight end for him as a senior in high school because of my size. And
was his kid the quarterback?
No, Kellen's younger than me.
Okay.
I played tennis. Tom was also the tennis coach. This is a small town.
Yeah.
So
what was it about football where you're like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm playing tennis?
I played basketball. And my mom said, okay, we're going to, we were plain simple folks. And my parents were investing in me to go to a Pepperdine basketball camp. And they said, okay, we'll send you to this. This is unheard of for a small farming kid to go to this prestigious basketball camp. And she said, we're going to spend a little bit of money to see if we can make something out of you because you gave up piano and we don't know what else you're going to be able to do in life. So maybe basketball is something there. And so I was going to Pepperdine basketball camp, and she said, you can either go to Pepperdine basketball camp and play basketball, or you can play football for Tom Moore. Because if you play football, you're going to get broken because you don't know what you're doing.
Parents are real. It's good that parents are real.
Brutally honest, right?
Somebody
there.
else will tell you you'll be all American. Your dad's like, nope, you won't.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, not having grown up in that, it probably was true. They were probably wise. So I played basketball.
Lavelle always used to say, people would come to him and say, oh, my son hasn't played since he was little, but now he's in 9th grade or 10th grade. Is it too late? And Lavelle always used to say, no, I actually would prefer that they didn't even play until 8th or 9th grade.
So I wish I would have known that.
Yeah, he always would tell them, it's like, if they're an athlete and they've done other things and have the skills, they can learn the game, and they're probably less beat up if they haven't played since they're 8 years old. I remember him saying that and thinking, our kids are not going to play till they're older. And then at 8, they're like, Dad, I'm playing football, right? And I'm going, oh.
You could have gone with the Ziggy Ansah approach.
Yeah, Ziggy didn't even play till college.
All this good information. I wish you could have interviewed me last week instead of Johnny for that.
That's
catch.
right. It's exactly right.
You'd have been making that catch.
Well, Kellen, I know Kellen pretty well. I know that you know Kellen. Kellen's father-in-law, Rob Wilson, played defensive back at BYU. So he's got a BYU connection. He always has had because he's married to a BYU alum's daughter who also attended BYU, and so Julie, and so he has ties to BYU. Kellen has ties to BYU that people don't even realize. Yeah. So
we're going to get him on this show with your help. We're going to get him on this show.
He's currently the coordinator for the Chargers, and he was with the Dallas Cowboys for a number of years. His top tight end at Boise State worked for me for a long time. So we would see Kellen all the time. And I used to broadcast those games. I was telling Dave, we'd talk to him. I'm like, wait, you're dating the Wilson girl? And he'd go, yeah. And I go, you grew up in Prosser. That's like a big time, Church of Jesus, LDS community. He's like, yeah. And I go, do you go to church with her? He goes, yeah. And I said, wait a minute. You go to the Mormon church? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, when are you going to get baptized? He goes, someday. And then he did. And then he did.
Yep.
So
great story. Are you ready for 5 questions? Then we'll get you out of here.
Let's do it.
All right. This is a Wise Guys tradition. They require no prep. That's why we didn't tell you about it.
Yeah. And you just answer the first thing that comes to your head. Okay?
You ready?
Favorite sports movie?
Remember the Titans.
Titans.
See, that's a very popular one. So, your favorite singer or band? You used to play the piano, so we know you're a musician now. Favorite singer or band?
Boy, you've already talked about Journey, and I'll just say Journey. I don't know if they're my favorite, but I love Journey.
They're great. I could
no
go with Journey. Yeah,
Journey's
awesome. Big time. So,
did you see them when they were here at the Marriott Center and on the Frontiers tour?
I did not.
Brian Adams was the warm-up band. They used to have concerts at the Marriott Center, and that's gone away. But that's where I came to appreciate Journey.
What year was that? 80?
I want to say 84.
Was it 84? All I know is that Nancy Whittingham, mother of Utah coach Kyle Whittingham, we were lamenting that we didn't have any money. And it was a shame that Journey was in the Marriott Center and we couldn't get in. And she goes, let me show you guys how you do this. She said, get dressed up a little bit and let's go. She put us in the car. We drove down from Oak Hills and we drove in there. And she said, just get right behind me. Don't make eye contact with anybody and walk right in like you know what you're doing. We said, okay. So the person taking tickets was there. The concert was already going. We walked up. She walked up. Hello. She said, come on. And we all just walked right into the concert, found some seats above concourse, and watched the show.
Great.
So she taught me a very valuable lesson. If you don't make eye contact and act like you know what you're doing and dress up a little, you can pretty much walk into anything you want to.
There's truth to that.
So that's how we saw Journey. We all saw Journey for free because Nancy Whittingham showed us how to do it.
Awesome.
Love it.
All right, so Journey, number 3.
Yes, your favorite breakfast cereal.
Oh, breakfast cereal. I have to say that it's Wheat Chex. And the story behind that was...
There has to be a story. Let's hear it.
That's like a Farmer Prosser kind of a cereal.
Well, that's probably why. I was just in Prosser, and I don't eat breakfast normally. I'm a intermittent faster, and so breakfast is not usually the thing, but I usually have breakfast later in the day. So I was visiting my mom this last week up in Washington, and I opened up the cereal drawer, and there was a box of Wheat Chex. And I thought, this is great. I'm having Wheat Chex. I don't get this at home very often because I don't eat breakfast. I'm going to have, the traditional legacy Wheat Chex breakfast. And I had it one morning. The next morning I had it again. And I said, Mom, this is so great. And she's like, yeah, nobody likes it here. And then I looked at the box. It expired in 2019.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, Mom, I just did you a favor, and I may not survive.
Why do I feel like Wheat Chex can't be good unless you put 6 tablespoons of sugar on it?
Because it's the facts, and Rice Chex are right behind it. So you felt okay though? You ate Chex and were 3 years old.
I'm 4 days out, so
that
I'm
tells
okay.
you everything you need to know about Chex cereal. Yeah. Right? It'll last a lifetime.
Yeah, they never expire. That's a good thing about
it. But we've almost done the show a full year. We've had a myriad of guests, and not one person has said Wheat Chex.
I might have to
So
go back
you-
and try some weed checks, but I'm pretty certain it's going to take a lot of processed
I
sugar.
am not going to make that kind of commitment, but I admire you anyways. How's
Okay,
that?
so your favorite BYU moment?
Boy, favorite BYU moment. It will be. I got a couple, but I'll just do the one that first came to mind because that's what you
Yeah,
asked
yeah.
for, right? Graduation. Graduation, my undergraduate graduation, bachelor's degree. Shout out to the School of Communications, Public Relations.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to walk. And I told my parents that as much, and I said I was at BYU, I was always working full time, going to school, and just busy. I had 2 kids when I graduated from BYU in 2003. And I didn't want to take the day off of work to go to this celebration that I didn't really necessarily care about. And my parents had told me, my dad was what we found out later was dealing with cancer. It was just having a lot of pain, and so they weren't able to travel from Washington. And they said, we're not going to be there, but we really think you should do it because it's a big deal. And I said, no, I don't really want to do it. But they finally convinced me to do it with my wife and also with my 2 daughters who were a part of that. I dressed them up in caps and gowns. So we did it. I'm doing a thing.
Nice.
And as I walked into the Marriott Center, my parents were there.
Really?
And they
wow.
surprised me by coming in all the pain that my dad had to face sitting in that car for 10 hours from Prosser. They came down because it was that important to celebrate and
That's
to
a
recognize.
great BYU moment. That's a great
That's
memory.
awesome.
So,
And aren't you glad you said you would?
Yep.
Because then they'd be there watching everyone else.
Yep. Where
and
is
you'd
he?
be at work
Where-
somewhere on your campus job. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I'm glad you went. Gavin, our youngest son, we were driving by campus in the spring, and I said, "What's going on campus today?" And he said, I think it's graduation today. I go, "Aren't you graduating?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, forgot." Now he had gone right into he'd gone straight into graduate school and into the Master's in Public Administration program. So he'd already started graduate school, but I was like, "Gavin, that's not okay. It's too late now," but he just forgot that it was graduation. So we have no pictures of Gavin in his cap and gown graduating from BYU, at least with his undergrad.
Well, we want a big graduation. That's our show, right? Yeah, graduation is a big deal for us. That's welcoming officially the new members of our family, even though we've been working with them since before they're even accepted. But this is the moment when they become
The crowning moment. We have all 5 of our kids are BYU grads. So, and most of our in-laws. We had a Stanford guy in there, and that's okay. But the others are all BYU.
I remember I was in New Jersey on my graduation day and I was on a Good Morning America assignment as one of the reporters, and I flew in, got changed, got down to the Harris Fine Arts Center in time for to walk. It was just, and my parents were, you earned it. I always tell my kids, they're all Aggie graduates, and the other 2 are going to be too. And I said, we're walking, we're coming up, and we're walking because you owe this to your parents. Of all that we've done and all that we've financed, we get to at least watch you walk from the start of the stage to the end of the stage, and somehow it's all worth it.
To me, there's two times in parenting where you get huge reward back. The one is when your child's walking at college graduation. You're like, yes, we did this, right? Then the other is when they have their first kid or 2, and then they say to you one day, just in casual conversation, "Hey, Dad, do you know all those times when you were telling me this and this and this and this? You were right."
Yeah.
That's the second big payoff.
Exactly.
Is when they finally have kids and admit that your whole life you were right. Those are the 2, to me, that you look forward to. So,
all right, last one.
Yeah, last one is your favorite Big 12 game on the schedule.
Oh, on the schedule. Again, the first one that comes to mind is West Virginia.
Really? Why?
Just because the community. I haven't been there, but what I know about not just our grads, but the community that they're a part of. Our BYU family is going to show up, and they're going to be friends with all of their neighbors already, and it's just going to be similar to what I experienced in Lynchburg last year.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We did, Dave and I did pre and post game stuff for the last meeting with West Virginia, but it wasn't on campus.
No, it was in D.C.
It was in D.C. They had it at a neutral site at RFK Stadium, right?
And that's where we became friends with Doug Paisley, Brad Paisley's
Brad's dad.
Those
They're
are the
big West Virginia.
Oh yeah,
alum.
they'll be at that game. Maybe Brad will sing the national anthem or something. But when they came back in concert up here in Utah, we took them some BYU shirts and Doug, who's a diehard West Virginia fan, will wear his BYU football shirt and drive the tour bus.
No way.
Yeah.
That's
really
awesome.
cool.
So we have two friends who went to West Virginia.
Yep, and I don't know, we don't have our schedule down yet of what games we're going to take the show on the road for, but West Virginia would be a really fun one to be able to do.
It's not easy to get to, from what I understand.
Yeah.
It's not an easy road trip, but we know that
It'd be
our
really
guys
cool.
will be there.
They'll be there.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, we're not allowed in Texas in Texas Stadium anymore because the last time Dave and I were there, somebody got hurdled on the Longhorns team.
They might let us in as long as Taysom's not with us. If you
Somebody
and
got
Taysom go
hurdled,
walking in,
and
that's
it's
it.
a nightmare. They're like, no, if these two guys are not allowed in there because we were right there when he hurdled the guy. We were
Like at
covering
the
that
10-yard
game,
line was insane.
and we're not allowed in that stadium any longer.
The quiet of 100,000 Longhorn fans is something that you can hardly describe. But they were sitting there so quiet the whole game.
Unbelievable.
I think it was like 41-6 or something like that. Final score.
Yeah,
It
was a whooping.
Last thing for you: where can folks who listen to this show get more information about what you do with the Alumni Association?
Yeah. Well, if they're alums, then just watch your email. I'll just say update your information, and we'll feed it to you. Just make sure your information is updated. You can update that right at alumni.byu.edu.
Okay.
So if you make sure that your email address and phone number is updated, then we'll get information right to you. That would be the best way. And just keep an eye on byu.edu, the website. If you want to go to that alumni.byu.edu, we'll have the tailgate section there prominently highlighted throughout.
And you got
the
a
season.
magazine.
And there's a magazine that goes out to about 320,000 folks or so. But
Nice.
yep, make sure that your address is updated, your contact information is updated, so we can stay connected for good.
Maybe someday we can get in that magazine.
I hope so.
Maybe someday we know somebody, but we'll see. We'll see if.
Well, and
we
hey,
need to do a lot more
alumni
good.
when we are on the road, and whether we're on the road or you're an alum and you're back here in town, make sure you stop by the set on our game day live set and say hi to us. We love to connect, especially when we're on the road. We love connecting with our alumni. And typically we do something the Friday night before a Saturday game when we're on the road that we get involved with, and we certainly love being part of that.
The reason we started the show, as traveled for years, is folks would come up and want to talk to us before the game and stuff, and we didn't have time for that. And they're not talking to us because we're great. We're just connected to what they love, which is the football team. And we thought, well, why don't we just pick a night of the week, do a live stream, and open it up and let people ask us questions about what they love in regards to BYU sports. And then we started thinking, well, why don't we bring on guests like you and Danny Ainge and everyone at Marie Osmond, anyone else that's connected to BYU and has been able to come on the show in this first year. But the reason we started it is the love the alumni have to stay connected with the love they have for BYU sports. We're just a conduit, but that's kind of the brainchild of it, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing it, and keep it up. This is a
we
great
love
thing.
it, and we've had so much fun with it.
Thanks for coming. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Keep doing the great things you're doing. We love it.
Okay.
Director of Alumni Relations, Michael Johansson, on the Wise Guys. And as he steps out, we want to talk about the Big 12 schedule and shift into this is what we got coming. There's a lot of alumni events tied into this thing, and there's a lot of really good football games, Blaine, tied into this.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite a journey.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, that opener, Sam Houston, it's such a different season than what we're used to the last 10 years. Just because BYU finally gets to have a couple of warm-up games and get a feel for who they are, finalize some depth decisions. Doesn't it seem like the last 10 years BYU goes in, they're coming right out of camp and they're playing a P5 school that's really talented, maybe ranked in a big game, and having some injuries and not really sure of their rotation and who's going to play where and what, and And then, they don't even get a chance to blink. This year, I love the fact that they get a couple of games to figure out who they are before they go on the road to Arkansas. And then the Big 12 opener is at Kansas. Hey, I am not going to be surprised if BYU is this crazy to say 5-0 going into TCU?
It might be a little crazy, but I could see how you can get there.
Yeah, they could. I mean, I think that's a stretch, but I'm not going to be blown away if they're 5-0 going into TCU.
Stunned if they were 2-3.
Yeah, if they're not
2-3.
3-2 going into that game, I'll be surprised.
Yeah,
actually,
I think 3-2 puts them in a spot, but they still have the home games.
Actually, I think 4-1 is very doable. Yeah. Very doable. 3-2 maybe is what we would expect, right, in those first 5, and then they really get into the meat of the schedule at TCU, and then Texas Tech come, and then at Texas. I mean, it just look at that from that point forward.
Yeah, this is what
at TCU, Texas Tech at home, at Texas, at West Virginia, Iowa State at home, Oklahoma at home, and they finish the season at Oklahoma State. Wow.
This is what we've been waiting for all these years.
What a schedule.
Since 1922 and all of Lavelle's life, this is what we have been gearing up for. Now, as we consider this schedule and the NIL, I wrote a story at Deseret.com last week that I want to talk to you about. It was about my take on Kalani Sitake's strategy to offset all the big spenders with the NIL, and how can BYU stay competitive in this world. And the gist of it was, here's how he does it. The players trust him, and BYU has an open portal to the NFL. Those are the
that's
two
the portal
ways
they're most interested in, right?
That's the portal. That all this movement you're seeing are from guys going, I'm unhappy with my playing time here because it's not getting me to the NFL portal.
Right.
But BYU has a track record right now, especially the portal is wide open to the NFL.
Right.
And we often hear players say, after meeting with Kalani, I just trust him. I believe him. I believe what he says. And it's and there's NIL opportunities that are pretty good. Cody Epps has a really good one. Keaton Slovis has a good one. We know Lauren Gustin has a good one. So those are all there. It's not saying come here and play for free. It's how can BYU compete with the upper echelon of college football. You got to have a coach they trust, and you got to have access to the NFL. Isn't that trump everything?
It really does. And here's the other thing they're selling. They're selling long term to these families, really. So to parents, not just to kids, because sometimes an 18-year-old doesn't get it, right?
Right. A lot of times.
Sometimes a 20-year-old that's transferring and in the portal doesn't get it. And BYU's really starting to figure out how to sell this idea of, hey, you can go, let's just throw a number out there. Okay, you got a $200,000 deal at Tennessee, okay? How is that money guaranteed? What happens if you get hurt? What happens if you don't play? Like, are you sure you get that? And that's why you're going. Like, what are they doing to help you develop? Because here at BYU, where it might not be $200,000, I don't know what it is. It depends, but there is a sum. But the idea is we're going to line you up with corporations and with mentors when you come here, that not only are you going to get funds, and you talked about a good deal for Cody Epps, but they're going to mentor you on how to start a company, how to manage a company, how to manage your money. Perhaps you start a company while you're in school, which a couple of BYU basketball players already have done. So your NIL deal that you get at BYU is going to keep paying you. If you do it right and you take this all in and you take advantage of these mentors and you learn how to do all these things that we're offering to mentor you how to do, you're going to have an annuity that pays you for the rest of your life. And it's going to far exceed the one-time deal that whoever gives you, because we're not about one time. We're about developing you and taking care of you as an alumni forever.
Plus, you might hurt your knee.
Right.
You can jump ship and in a single incident at practice, it's it for you.
Yep.
And then what are you left with?
So they're selling. Listen, remember what Keaton Slovis told us when you and I were talking to Keaton, and he was like, I came to BYU not because it was the biggest NIL offer, because everybody wanted Keaton coming, transferring from Pitt.
Did.
It was about, where do I fit in? Where do I feel most comfortable? And very importantly, who's going to put me in an offense and develop me and help me to prepare to be an NFL quarterback. And BYU is where he felt he had the best opportunity to not only fit in and be part of the culture and love the culture, but he could prepare himself best here to play in the National Football League. And that's important. And you know what? You got Taysom Hill, Zach Wilson, and now Jaron Hall, all in the National Football League as quarterbacks.
And so
bam, bam, bam.
Keaton Slovis comes to BYU.
Right.
Jamal Williams, Tyler Algier to the NFL, Aiden Robbins to BYU.
1,000-yard rusher at UNLV. He goes, you know what? BYU produces NFL running backs. I'm in.
Brady Christensen, Blake Freeland to the NFL, Caleb Etienne and Kingsley Suamataia to BYU from
right. Oregon and Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the list keeps going. Michael Davis to the NFL, Eddie Heckard. Right. All-American transfers to BYU. And then you go to linebackers.
Yeah, Fred Warner, Kyle Van Noy, Sione Takitaki to the NFL. And so if you're, and please help me say AJ's last name from Utah State. Is it? I
think it's Vongpachong.
Vongpachong.
Something like that.
Anyhow.
And we're going with AJ as soon as we say it.
As soon as we say it once in a game, we'll call him AJ. But here's AJ up at Utah State, and he's their leading tackler, and he's going, I need to go to a place that there's a pathway. Well, they're not just players in the NFL. Yeah. Every player we just mentioned is a very visible, big-time player in the National Football League. And
making a lot of money.
Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, that's a pathway for me to the National Football League. Kalani recognizes the power of that.
Yeah.
And so his job is to create a culture that players want to be in, to provide them with mentors and opportunities for them to become a whole person and to have things beyond football. That's really important.
And he can control that part. He can't control the rest, but he can control, trust me, right. I got your back.
We're going to give you this. And if you have the talent, we will develop you.
Yeah.
Talented players from here get developed, and they play in the National
We'll
Football
stage
League.
a giant pro day just for you.
Yep.
And, oh, by the way, you can ask all those guys how it worked out. It doesn't work out for everybody in the NFL.
Yep.
That doesn't work out for everybody in the NFL at every school.
Right.
But BYU's got a portal open.
You have to bring some natural gifts with you to make it in the NFL too, right?
Absolutely.
But BYU's got to show that the talented kids get, and guess what? They're doing it in a big way in the last several years.
Next week, receivers coach Fesi Sataki will join the Wise Guys. The week after that, Amber and Amari Whiting will be here in studio. Gennaro Guilford will be with us on May 30th. Those all ahead for us in our really our 1-year anniversary month, the month of May on the Wise Guys. Let's shift to some things that are going on campus, and men's basketball is in the forefront. Season ticket information was just released yesterday. It's available at BYUtickets.com, including prices for the first season in the Big 12. There's a lot of information, so if you want information on that, it's all right there on the website.
We can do a whole show on that, right?
Yeah. The schedule traditionally comes out in September. We thought we might get it earlier just because of the newness. We should know the non-conference slate here pretty quick, but we might not know the Big 12 schedule until we get to football season.
Though. Multiple national title contenders will be coming into the Marriott Center every year from this point forward.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Kansas is always in the hunt. Houston's always in the hunt. Baylor's always in the hunt. Kansas State was in the hunt this last year.
Texas Tech is always up there.
This is the elite basketball conference in all of college basketball. And so, yeah, that place is going to be full a bunch. The Marriott Center is going to be full. It's
an investment.
Right.
Because it's not cheap, but it's an investment in the quality of basketball that certainly has been lacking the last 12 years.
Right.
And certainly greater than the Mountain West, which was pretty good when BYU left it.
Yeah, very good. They were getting 3 and 4 bids to the NCAA tournament, but this is a 6 and 7 bid league.
Yeah.
That tells you how good and how deep they are.
And even if you go back to the WAC, the WAC had some years.
Yeah.
But the WAC is not this.
No. This is like teams that are top 10 teams every year
coming to town. They don't even get a choice. They get assigned
1 and 2 seeds in the
town.
NCAA tournament. So, hey, we thought going to the Big 12 that they might simmer down that preseason schedule in basketball a little bit so they can manufacture some wins by scheduling to give you a chance.
Not so much.
Not with the John Wooden legacy in Las Vegas. BYU's a part of that. The teams have been set now. BYU, North Carolina State, Arizona State, and Vanderbilt The date is to be determined sometime around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
BYU will be playing.
They usually do that in Anaheim. They moved it to Vegas.
It's coming to Vegas.
Pretty soon, everything's going to be in Vegas.
And all pro sports are going to be there, and it's good. Yeah.
So a chance to pick up a couple of high quality opponents again.
Yeah.
And then they'll have some time to recover before Big 12 play starts.
It's the Big 12, BYU, ACC, Pac-12, and SEC.
Yeah.
All represented in that tournament.
That's a good group. Now, here's the latest on the additions. And there's going to be some adding and some subtracting still, as the portal's still open in basketball. And Mark Pope and his staff are still in there looking around. But right now there are 13 scholarships for the basketball team. They have 14 players on scholarship. So do the math.
A little bit of a log jam.
But here come the three new guys. Quez Glover went to Samford. He comes to BYU from Samford, but he had a couple of years at Florida before that, averaging 14.7. He's a guard. Dawson Baker.
Remember about, like, the reason they got him because they wanted a scoring guard.
Yeah.
The year before when he was healthy, he wasn't healthy last year. Only played 19 games. He had nagging injuries. The year before, he averages 19.2 points and 4.4 assists.
They got to get that.
He can score.
Dawson Baker can score. He averaged 15.3. We talked about him last week. Out of UC Irvine, he's 6'4", kind of a two guard, but he would be the leading scorer on the whole team
at 15.3.
With 15.3 from last year.
He's long and can defend on the perimeter and physical, so that's a nice addition. And then Ali Khalifa at 6'11" out of Charlotte. Boy, they needed a 6'11" guy.
Yeah,
and athletic, and he's going to really help. I'd like to see him get another big. And you say, well, they already have 14 guys. Well, there's going to have to be some tough conversations.
Those are coming.
And remember, with NIL, you could move somebody into a walk-on spot, and they could still have some financial help, so they're not footing the full bill of school, right? It's a little different than the old days. So don't fret. They can rearrange and figure some things out.
Just take the deck chairs.
Because if there's another 6'10" guy out there that's skilled and talented,
gotta get him.
You got to get him. Yeah. Right. I think that's the number one priority right now. Hey, if there's another great wing out there, you go get him too. Like, and you just figure it out. But I think big priority is another big on the front line. They're just not that deep yet right now on the front line.
And then you do what Kalani has said all along, although this will be Mark Pope saying it, is the best five get on the floor.
Right.
Doesn't matter who played all the minutes last year. Doesn't matter if you're a senior, a junior, a freshman, sophomore. The best players have to be on the floor when you're playing in the best conference.
And when you're playing in the best conference, and you have to do this in every sport, you recruit talent right over the top of talent. Yeah. You don't go, oh, we have a great quarterback, so we shouldn't go get a great quarterback in this next year's class. No, you just keep recruiting talent. And then you let them battle it out. And that's how you have to compete, and that's how you create depth. So they've got to do that. So
let's run down the baseball situation. They're playing the Utes tonight. 19-26 on the year, 9-12 in the WCC. Pitching's been a problem all year long. Starting pitching, bullpen pitching. Yeah. It just hurt him last weekend.
Yeah, and isn't that what baseball's all about, really? Because you can be great everywhere else on the field. If you don't have not just quality pitching, but quality depth, right? You play so many games. If you don't have quality depth, it's just hard to hold teams down, and that's been BYU's. So tonight, that game's at Smith's Ballpark. And then Thursday through Saturday, BYU's at Pacific. Take the show on the road. I was talking to Shep this morning. Says he's going on the road to Pacific.
They got to sweep those Tigers.
Lovely Stockton.
Tigers haven't been very good. That's on BYU radio. Softball's 31-14, 10-2 in the WCC. They're done here at home. They swept Pacific over the weekend. Now this weekend, Friday and Saturday, they're at St. Mary's. That's their final WCC series. It's the Big 12 after Saturday for BYU. They've got a shot at making the NCAA tournament, but something's got to happen.
Yeah, they've got to sweep St. Mary's this weekend. LMU's got to lose 2 of 3 against San Diego. It's possible, but not likely. And the reason is LMU's at 11-1 right now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned BYU's at 10-2, but the Cougars are 1-2 at LMU. They went 1-2. So if they tie, like, LMU's got to lose and BYU's got to win.
The Cougs got to sweep. Right. And LMU somehow has to lose twice to San Diego.
2 of 3.
They didn't last year, and I don't think they're going to this year. And that it'll come down to, once again, like last year, the BYU-LMU series decided that the regular season championship, they don't have a tournament, and it's a one-bid league.
Right.
And BYU got hosed last year with 40-some wins.
Right.
And so I don't think they're counting on much. But they are counting on getting Big 12 ready.
Right.
And that's what's
in
next.
the Big 12, that's more than a one-team league. So
Yeah. Women's golf, Alicia May Mateos in the San Antonio Regional of the NCAA tournament. Started yesterday. She had a good day yesterday. I'm just checking the phone today. She finished at 1 over, so she was 2 over today, 1 over for the tournament, and now the leader is -6, so she's tied for 7th with one more round to play. For her to get to the NCAA finals, she's got to finish as the low individual, not on an advancing team, but the first place young lady is from UTSA, and they don't have their team there either.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an uphill battle, but hey, there's still 18 holes to decide it. That's
right.
tomorrow.
So, hey, men's golf, NCAA regionals, May 15th through the 17th at the Institute Golf Club near San Jose, so over in California. 14 teams are in the Morgan Hill Regional. The top 5 advance to the NCAA Championship May 27th through June 1st down in Scottsdale.
They got a shot.
Yeah.
That team's got a
Yeah,
shot.
pretty solid, pretty deep, and that's what it takes, right?
Track and field, we congratulate Kenneth Rooks for rewriting history in the men's steeplechase. The junior from Walla Walla, Washington, finished in 8:17.62. It's the fastest time in the world for 2023.
Wow.
Second fastest in NCAA history, and he breaks Henry Marsh's 1977 record as the fastest all-time at BYU. That, by the way, was a record no one was going to break, and now it's been broken.
Right.
He's also been named National Athlete of the Week by U.S. Track and Field, and now there's some Olympic buzz. Hey, what about the steeplechase in the Olympics?
Yeah, that's
what a weekend for Kenneth Rooks.
That's amazing. And BYU Track and Field just continues to have not only the team but individuals in the spotlight.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, it's one of the top programs at BYU. Soccer, still waiting on the Big 12 schedule to be made public. Jen Rockwood says it should be out this month. Just was talking to Jen. She was so gracious. Helped me with a tour with some young players, and they got a chance to meet some of BYU's players. And
Good.
Jen is just phenomenal, and I love her confidence. We talked again, and they're so ready to be in the Big 12 and compete. The WCC's been a good conference. National title contenders,
Right.
Not just BYU, but Santa Clara's also been really, really good. But they're ready to go. Cougars are on tour in Europe right now. Coach Rockwood said she would come back on the Wise Guys as soon as the schedule is released and go through it with us. Soccer and women's volleyball will be the first sports on campus to compete as a P5 program because they start in August. So there we go.
They're first out of the gate. Men's volleyball, the final poll is out. BYU finishes number 8 in the AVCA poll, 19-7, 14-0 at the Smith Fieldhouse. And by the way, they were picked to finish second to last in the MPSF. They had a phenomenal season.
Because they were so young, right?
Yeah, because they were young.
It was a reloading year, and that's what they finished.
And we congratulate them. And UCLA ended up winning the national title. They won the MPSF. They were better than everybody, and then they won the NCAAs. And we look forward to another season. Packed at the
BYU should be, and they don't go to the Big 12 obviously, but BYU should be a national title contender next year.
Yeah, and they got this home court winning streak now.
Yeah, pretty fun.
So we look forward to having those guys back with us as the new season arrives. Let's look at this day in history on May 9th as we get ready to wrap up another week of the Wise Guys, and we sure appreciate you watching and looking and watching our snippets and invite you to subscribe for free on YouTube. On this day, May 9th.
Let's go. Can we go all the way back to 1502?
That's old school.
Let's go back. Columbus leaves Spain on his 4th and final trip to the New World. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but he also sailed it in 1502.
What do you think his attitude was? Yeah, I'm going back to the world I discovered.
Let's go do this again. So
this time I'm going to Florida.
Round four. So
1865 on this day, the Civil War ends. President Andrew Johnson proclaims armed resistance in the South is virtually over.
Wow, 1865. 1868, Reno, Nevada is founded. Was it called the biggest little city in the world at that time?
I don't know. When was it? Were they founded before Vegas? I don't think so.
I don't know.
But
1868.
let me tell you about Reno, because I spent 20 years in Vegas. So you go up to Reno, and this is the first time I'd ever been there. We were up for a game. UNLV was playing. And so I'd never been in the Reno Strip or whatever it is. And even the lights are smaller. You know, that's one thing I noticed is like, Reno wants to be Vegas so bad, but it can't. And then Vegas has now since blown it past.
Yeah, Vegas is.
What Reno has is a lot of the political clout.
Right. Carson City's not far from there.
Right. And all that. But Reno just has such an identity crisis.
It has some nice neighborhoods south of town and there up in Reno, but yeah, it's not Vegas.
But hey, you know, more power to Reno. Kyle Van Noy came from the Reno area. He did. So we got that going.
So hey, how about 1914? President Woodrow Wilson proclaims Mother's Day as a holiday. That's this Sunday.
That's this Sunday.
This Sunday.
You know, that's one of that's the starting point. There's always, I was thinking the other day, when did some of these traditions begin?
Yeah.
And they began on this day back in 1914. In 1980, another tradition began. The Friday the 13th movie was released in U.S. theaters, followed by, I think, 20 other ones.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger's in all of them, right? Is Freddy Krueger the Friday the 13th?
I think he's in Nightmare on Elm Street.
What one's Friday the 13th? Who's the main character?
Is that him?
Yeah.
Friday the 13th?
See, DJ saying is Freddy. DJ saying is Freddy.
So I believe it, because I haven't seen any of those. I don't watch those kind of shows.
Oh, it's Jason.
Jason is then.
That's right. It's Jason. Freddy Krueger is a Nightmare on Elm, so it's Jason.
Jason, I thought he was the Halloween guy.
Jason's the
hockey mask
now
guy.
you guys are making me. You guys are making me look this.
Michael Myers.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Michael Myers is the Halloween guy. Jason's the Friday the 13th guy. Thanks, DJ.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
Okay.
our world changed not for the better.
No,
on
not
this
for the
day
better.
in 1980.
So we're gonna go right from on this day to May 9th birthdays.
How about Mike Wallace, 1918? A lot of folks around here got to know Mike Wallace as he interviewed President Gordon B. Hinckley, as President Hinckley would go on 60 Minutes from time to time and just let him ask him whatever he wanted.
They became great friends.
Yeah.
And, hey, 1949, Billy Joel. What's your favorite Billy Joel song?
You know, I'm not the biggest Billy Joel fan, but I like Allentown.
Oh, that's like it's got that good. Like they do like the whistle.
Yeah,
in a,
like the train's coming through or something.
Yeah.
But Uptown Girl is pretty
Living
good.
here in Allentown.
He's got some good ones. What's yours?
When Piano Man's a classic.
You like Piano Man?
Yeah, and we went to a concert in Madison Square Garden not that long ago. Billy Joel, when he comes to Madison Square Garden, it's like he's home, right? And he would just mix in, because it was right at Christmas time, like a Christmas song. And what I realized is, and I knew this a long time ago, but to see him again, he really is the Piano Man. He is a ridiculous pianist. Like he is so good and can just play anything. But I would have to say, She's Got a Way About Her or Piano Man.
Piano Man.
So
on this day, May 9th, born on 1960, Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, Tony
from
Gwynn.
the Aztecs, the
Our
great
good friend from
San Diego
State,
Padre.
and he is the greatest Padre, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure. Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is from Rafiki.
yes,
Co-star in The Lion King.
yeah, Rafiki. He's like, you can always
The mystic monkey.
There's a lot of wisdom given by Rafiki in that show that you need to pay attention to, but this one amongst the best. He says, "Oh yes, the past can hurt." I should do it in a Rafiki accent, but I can't do it. "Oh yes, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it." Great words of wisdom from Rafiki.
And Simba followed his advice, and he went back and went back to get his throne and do all that stuff.
Right.
So thank you to Rafiki from The Lion King. You know what? The Lion King is full of good lessons.
Oh yeah, it's a
that
cartoon
carry on
full of lessons.
in real life, and Rafiki is certainly a contributor.
My favorite scene from The Lion King is when the hyenas go ask the question like, "Who brought the pig?" And then and he takes offense and, "Are you talking to me? They call me Mr. Pig."
And they made him pay. He made him pay. Pumbaa made him pay.
All right, who brought the pig?
We want to thank Michael Johansson, Director of BYU Alumni Relations. it was so good to visit with him about what the tailgates have done around the country. It's get together, eat some food, go watch the game and all that stuff, but it's the service projects that have a lasting impact on the community long after the team goes.
I think it's great. It was great to have Michael on with us. We'll have him on again, and we'll have the chapter presidents on before each away game to find out what's going on in those communities, what the service project is for that week, and how you all can get involved.
First up will be Arkansas.
Yep.
As we get into the third week of September. Podcast will be up tomorrow. Please share it with your friends. Tell your friends about us, the Wise Guys, and we'll be back next week. Fesi Sataki, we got a lot to talk to him about, including Cody Epps.
Who knows? Maybe they'll have another wide receiver. They get out of the portal by next week.
Would that be nice?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Do you know something?
Possibly.
We do know some things
It's
on
a
this show.
possibility. So we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.